Hey everyone, just here in my sunroom, which I've converted into a workshop on that side and a gym on this side. It's a little bit messy at the moment because I've been doing a lot of work on my streamliner, which is there and the mold standing up against the window. And I've just finished this bike, which I'll be racing in the Oz HBV Challenge in Melbourne, in Geelong, on October 6th and 7th. So Saturday and Sunday. And I thought I'd give you a bit of an update of what's been happening and, as promised, how I built this bike, because I know a lot of you are interested. Let's have a look. So I built this bike because over here I have my Streamliner training bike, which is really only good for stops and starts and straight line. I only just barely rode it around the velodrome, which is really sketchy. And I need something to train in a recumbent position for Battle Mountain to build specific muscles for that. So I built this training bike, which is I'm calling it a midracer 650C wheels. And full carbon except for the little back portion there. So I was trying to sell my track bike because I'll probably never go back to track again, and I couldn't sell it because no one wanted to buy it. So I figured, because that bike is useless and I need a training bike, I was going to build over in the corner, so I got my chin up. I was going to build over here just a stationary trainer, so when I got home from my afternoon ride I could sit on that and train. But the only bad thing about that is that I'm not increasing my balance. I'm not progressing my skills at riding one of these bikes. So I decided to chop the track bike into pieces and use it as a build this out of it. So use as much as I could off the track bike, which is pretty much just the rear triangle, so that bit there, and the carbon fork. Everything else is custom or stuff I had lying around, like a derailleur and a few brake levers. So what I got here is a piece of foam, just something polystyrene or something. I can't remember. It's like tooling foam, but really light density. So how I built this bike is I got blocks like this. So down the bottom, that straight bit, and the straight bit for the back and the shoulder rest were all just straight pieces of foam, but I cut into a square rectangle shape. This bit here, and that bit, that's a straight bit as well. This was the only tricky part, the curve there. I just got a printout from a drawing I had of the bike. So I printed it out at Officeworks in actual size on A1 piece of paper, chopped it out, laid it on the foam, and then cut it out to this shape. Then, as you can see, I've wrapped it in masking tape, and what I did was I got one layer of carbon fiber per side, and I wet it down and cured the carbon fiber. And then once it had cured, I glued it onto each of these sides and sanded it back until it was flush with the edges. So instead of having overhang on either side, it'd be flush. So it was one sheet, one layer, 0.25 mil around on each of the sides. So when I go and wrap it in carbon fiber, the corners wouldn't compress in and cause a rounded corner. They'd keep their edge, because a square shape's a lot easier to cut the angles you want than a tube. Being a circle, you have to make sure it's lined up when you cut the other side, otherwise it'll be out of whack. So that's how I've made the basic components of it, so the shoulder and back rest and stuff. And once I'd done that, I'd just cut it at the angle that I wanted, so straight across there, and just glued it together with just a bit of two-part adhesive, I forget what it's called, Techni glue. And once I glued it together, I just wrapped it and 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 kept on layering it up until there was at least a few 3 or 4 mil of solid carbon, especially around this joint where like all the forces are transferred. So you go over a bump and that wants to like bend in and snap. So this bit down here is like pretty much solid. I went way overkill there. So that's how I made these pieces. As for the neck of it, or whatever you call that bit, as for that, I 3D printed just a cylinder and did the same technique, wrapped it in carbon fiber. And for the handlebars, you can see they're quite, if it focuses, it's quite nicely molded. So how I did that, I 3D printed two halves, so forward and back. And then I laid carbon fiber in there, in each section of the mold, pushed them together, and then put a condom through the middle and inflated the condom to give it positive pressure, and just let it cure. And it turned out quite nice, like surprisingly. And I did the same for that long bit there, and then I put like a little rebate in it so it slotted into the piece that I already made and just glued it in. Moving on to the idlers, I'd machined, I don't know if you can see, I've machined up an aluminium bar with just a thread on the end of it, so I can put like a bearing stop on there. I machined that up, I glued it in place sort of just by eye, and once it had dried, I just bogged it full of glue and carbon fiber. Chopped strands of carbon fiber up and just bogged it. And then once it had been filled, I laid carbon fiber over it and just wrapped it, like I said before, with everything else. This bike I laser lined with. I bought a laser level from Bunnings and used that to line up the bottom bracket with the headset and with like the rear seat stays, the rear wheel stays, because it's like super critical to get it absolutely perfect. Otherwise you'll be crabbing along as you're riding, or it'll feel weird because you're putting more power, or you're pushing straight with one leg and crooked with the other. So pretty much the entire bike is laser line. It's not perfect, it's probably a millimeter out between the bottom and the top, like in line, but it's good enough. Over here on the front derailleur holder, I 3D printed the circle shape of this and then wrapped it in carbon fiber, and then I just sanded down the tube until it was like a perfect diameter to fit that, and then I just hollowed out the inside, and same technique as everything else. I just glued it on and then bogged it full of carbon until it was strong enough. This doesn't need to be super strong, it's not like a load bearing thing, but yeah. The seat of the bike is pretty straightforward. It's just flat bits of carbon fiber. It's not molded to my body. The training bike, as you can see, it is molded. It's molded to my body. But this one, I wasn't super concerned about that. Like, I've got a padded seat because this is more designed for like hours and hours in the saddle, like long distance riding, whereas the other one's designed to hug my body and produce as much power as I can. This is the track bike, and as you can see, it's got like the rear wheel adjustments here. Down here where I've chopped the bottom bracket, oh that's right, I used the bottom bracket off the track bike on this bike as a bottom bracket for this bike. I've literally just filled it in with some honeycomb and sheets of carbon and just filled in the gap that I've taken the bottom bracket out from, and then I've glued that in and wrapped it around where this comes on. And then up the top here, where the shoulder support is, I've wrapped that to the that's where the seat goes on the track bike. So I've just wrapped it around there. So between that and down here, I'm pretty confident it's not going to come off, because that's like at least 10 layers of carbon fibre. It's like 2.5 mil. And then I glued the seats on and just laid a bit of carbon in here on those edges there. The rear brake is just carbon and honeycomb, which I glued in and then wrapped around and then drilled a hole through for the brake. That's like ridiculously strong. You could hit that with a sledgehammer and it wouldn't even move. It's so strong. And you can see the dodgy job in here of the back support. That sort of, I wanted that there just to take out any flex that the bike did have. If you go over or put your weight on the bike, I didn't want it to bow at all. It's like 2 mil of carbon, so it's probably never going to do that, but I'm still a little bit conservative when it comes to how much carbon to use. Like, I don't want to get it wrong and have all my work come crashing down when I'm doing 60k an hour down a hill and the bottom falls out and I'll land on my ass and go scraping along on my side. I don't want that to happen. With my Streamliner training bike, I've got an intermediate gear system up the top, so the chain runs from the front ring to the intermediate gears, around the derailleur and back, and then I've got a secondary one that goes down to the front wheel, and then that needs attention of it. Because this has a 3-speed cassette on the front, which is the standard track front wheel, because it's a standard track rear wheel that I've taken a spacer out so it can fit inside a standard track front wheel. You can only fit 3-speed on the front, so I don't need an idler chain tensioner, because the front derailleur is doing the tensioning for me. And I've got a triple ring on the front, so I can use the 2 big ones in all the 3 gears, and then the small one I can only use the biggest gear, which is like my only granny gear, but I'd probably never use the other 2 because of the ratios that are on this bike. So I think it's a 30, a 42, and it did have a 52 on it, but a 52 down to a 22, 19 and 16 I think it is, or 21, 22, 19 and 16. A 52 down to a 16 on a 650 wheel wasn't anywhere near fast enough. At 120 RPM it was like 35k an hour, which is on a recumbent that's so aerodynamic, it's slow. So I had to get a bigger one. I was going to get like a 58 or like a 60, but I couldn't really find any good ones or find any at all with the 5-bolt pattern, so I got a 61. So 61 down to a 19 and 16 is pretty decent pace. Like, you're sort of sitting on the limit of your power and sitting on the limit of like a steady cruising speed at maybe the 19, and then the 16 is sort of like an effort gear, so you increase your speed, increase your RPM to 120 and like do a bit of an effort, like a 3-minute effort at like 300 watts or whatever, 400 watts. Down here on the derailleur, I've sort of just looped it around. This is really dodgy. I've sort of just looped it around the front axle, similar to like how you'd find on a normal bike. I'll go over to my mountain bike just to show you. just lay it on its side. So you can see how you've got the axle and it sort of just hangs off that, and then you've got the derailleur mount there. So I've done pretty much the same thing on my training bike. I've got the axle and then I've just looped it around. I had to like file just a little bit down so it would sit in that little nook there. But yeah, it works perfect. It changes gears fine. Like, you sort of have to do it like a click, then like a little half click to feather it into gear, but like it works really well. The only problem I had was, if you can see on the other side, I've got that little sticky outy bit there. I had the same on this side because it's a symmetrical fork, but that was sort of scraping on the 16 tooth when you changed into that, when it came down, because I wanted this idler as close to like in line with the fork as possible, so when you turned the wheel, it was twisting the chain instead of pulling it from way back here. It just didn't work if it was from way back here. So I knew I wanted it there, and it wasn't working on the 16, so I just got out the Dremel and chopped a bit off, and then wrapped it in like 3 layers of carbon fiber, so it's like ridiculously strong now. So bit of a hack job, but it works. Oh, so the front brake, that's the original. It's a track bike, but it had like a front brake mount, so it was like you could turn the track bike into like a fixie for the street. It had the original mount, but because this 650 wheel's smaller than the 700, it's a normal brake isn't going to reach. And initially I was just going to have one brake, but because it's a street bike, you kind of do need 2 brakes. Like it stopped with 1 brake, but the stopping distance was like 1 kilometer, so I needed the 2 brakes. I sort of googled around, and I was getting a little bit concerned because I thought I'd have to like dodgy it up like I did on the back and bog it in underneath and then put another brake mount. But I was lucky enough to find this, what is it, Tektro R559, which is a long arm brake lever. I think it was like, normally it's like 35 to 55 mil from the center bolt. Get in focus. But I think this one was 75 to 95 or 55 to 75 mil, and then you can get another one that was 75 to 90, which would have been down here. And I think these are specific for like old school bikes, like cruisers and stuff, beach cruisers. But yeah, I'm thanking a lot for this, because it got me out of trouble and it works really well. Like, I just plugged it in and it worked straight away. Like, there's plenty of leverage on that too. Like, I thought it'd be too much like pull this way with the wheel, like as it's rolling forward, but no, it's super duper strong. So I've got fluoro bottle holders to go with my fluoro boots and black helmet. The bottle holder's just like a bit of bent sheet metal that I just whacked in there, just glued it and bolted it through the bottom, and then just like a 4mm, I think, bolt in the top. Like I was saying, the seat is cushioned. It's designed for long distance, so I just got like a bit of foam, just like this, just couch cushion foam, and sewed up a little seat. As you can see, that was supposed to be the edge, but I stuffed it up. So now it's the middle. But yeah, I've just got that. I've got some Velcro holding it there and down the bottom. And then the leftover, I figured I'd stick around there. I probably won't feel it lying on it. But yeah, it stops it sliding around. Here's a view from the driver's seat. So I've got my handlebars there. I think it's 136 or 135 degrees. I sort of just held the bar, held a bit of conduit to like simulate the angle that I wanted and measured it. I've got a angle measuring tool up on the wall there, and just felt what was best and designed that and 3D printed it like I was saying. See if I can get my legs. So I'm going to be attaching my GoPro here for when I'm riding, so I can get some good footage. It's good because like it moves with the handlebars. So as I'm turning into a corner, if you want to turn right, you push your handlebars left so the wheel turns that way. So it'll sort of angle the camera angle around the corner, so it'll give some nice footage as I'm heading into the corners, hopefully. So that's pretty much it for the explanation on how I made this bike. I'm pretty sure I covered everything. I don't think I missed anything. It's going to be my first competition racing this recumbent, or racing in a recumbent competition. I'm super excited, I can't wait. It's going to be full on 2 days. We're doing road race, criterium, time trial, 100 meter sprint, and 100 meter drag race on Saturday, and then it's slalom and obstacle course on the Sunday. So it's going to be a flat out 2 days. I'm going to do my best to get as much footage as I can of a race using the GoPro on the handlebars, and I'm going to try and put a lot of video up like as it happens, maybe even do a live video. But I really appreciate everyone that supports me, and I want to get as much footage of this as I can. 1, for historical records, and 2, because I know you guys want to see it. So wish me luck, and I'll keep you updated. Thank you. See ya.